follow your heart. I have, I think, a good set of instincts and gut reaction, and there's just something inside of me that says, I know that this needs to be done. I know that this will be successful. I know that this is a great idea. And I've talked to a lot of people about this, and everybody I've spoken with is like, wow, that's a fantastic idea. I never thought of doing such a thing. Um, so, figure out what it is that really drives you and motivates you. And like I said a couple minutes ago, figure out what part of that you are good at and what you want to do and what you're excited about doing, and
Hmm.
find good people.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where I help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Sandy Eulitt. And Sandy started her journey. Was in high school and during the computer revolution just started out, and so started during that period of time. Went off to college and started out studying physics, and then moved over to engineering. I didn't necessarily quite finish out, but during that period, I went out and started selling computers. Did come back to school and studied computer science and programming. Went off to work for a bigger business. Then the dot-com bust came about. So circle back to school and went into astrophysics engineering, doing I think airplanes if I remember right. Working worked in that industry for a while, and then as time progressed, started building an app to assist with elderly people, and finishing that app up and moving into beta phase. So should be a great episode. And with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Andy.
Thank you, Devin. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you on, and looking forward to a fun episode. So I just gave kind of the quick overview to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit? So tell us a little bit about your journey getting started as growing up with the or being in high school as a computer revolution came along.
I guess my closest memory to that is that one of my classmates, I went to high school in a small town, and honestly, it wasn't well known for having a lot of money. But one of my classmates, his family had some money, and he owned one of the very, very first original IBM PCs, which, as I understand, were like $6,000 at the time. And this is, many years ago money, $6,000. So this is quite an investment. But I did not get to use a computer until I went to Purdue after I graduated from high school, and I did programming on a Cyber 205 mainframe in the bottom of the math science building. And I use key punch cards. I am one of the few people left who actually programmed on key punch cards. And I still keep some in a drawer just for nostalgia's sake. They're great for grocery lists and to-do lists.
Well, that's awesome. So you started out, you went off to college, you had the opportunity to be one of the few in the crowd that got a program on key punch cards, and my father-in-law actually had the same experience. So you're a good company. Now you went into or studied something a bit different as you went into college. Didn't necessarily finish out that initial degree, but maybe walk us through that a bit.
Um, so we moved into the area where I went to high school just before I started eighth grade, and quite frankly, I was never very happy there. But I think that it was some kind of fate that took me there, because my high school had a planetarium in it, and I took the astronomy class the spring of my sophomore year in high school, and just was like, oh my God. this is the coolest thing ever in the history of mankind. So I went off to Purdue to study that. At the time, um, there was really nothing that you could do with a bachelor's degree in physics, and I was kind of over school at that point, so I switched to electrical engineering technology in the computer option and learned all about the transistors and the chips that actually make the computers run, and took some more programming classes, and then left and went into selling computers, moved to California, and then drifted back into programming by taking some a couple programming classes at the in the mid 90s.
Now, just
And
one quick question just on that. So you say, you started going down that route, took some classes, didn't necessarily work out. So it sounds like, putting words in your mouth, but left college for a period of time. But what was kind of within the degree or within that or field of study that pushed you more into going out or working as opposed to, finishing that up?
the degree in electrical engineering technology. I
Yep.
did get an associate's degree in it, and I completed some of the coursework toward my bachelor's degree. It was really kind of a case of out of patience and out of money. And I knew that this was not what I wanted to do the rest of my life. And so I just left and went to work.
Gotcha. So now you left and go to work, and so and you started to touch on that before I jump back a little bit. But what did you go out, or what did you go out and do, or kind of what was the area that you started working in?
Uh, I was doing office work, which eventually led to office work on a computer, which eventually led to selling computers, which eventually led to me moving to California and working for what was then a Fortune 500 computer manufacturer. Um, and then I left there and what started taking programming classes a couple years later, and then kind of re-entered IT as a software engineer and senior data architect. And I enjoyed it. I was a good programmer. I particularly liked designing databases. What I discovered is I really don't like working in offices. And um, so when the dot-com bust hit, very honestly, at the time, nobody would hire anybody who did not have a bachelor's degree in something. And I did not have one. I'd only completed my associate's degree. And I knew that I was not going to get a job without a bachelor's degree. So I was like, well, I guess it's time to go back to school. And if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in what I love, which was astrophysics and aerospace engineering.
Hmm.
So I pursued that and actually have slash had a business doing astronomy, corporate and private events with telescopes and helping people set up their telescopes and learn, to buy a telescope, learn how to use it, etc. But a few years ago, a set of circumstances conspired, and I realized that this app needed to be built, and I was sitting there on my sofa and thinking, okay, I know that I know how to do this. Maybe I don't know, how to write the code anymore because the languages have changed, but I know that this technology exists and I know that this needs to be done. And so I went down the road of getting that done.
Gotcha. And within that, if and you touched on it again, but you went, or I think you went back to school, got the different degree, and doing some on the computer front. But or in the meantime, is that right, or did I catch that wrong?
Um, when I went back to school after that, I frankly I went back to school in part to become a teacher, and I taught astronomy at a local community college for a while. I discovered that I don't really like teaching at a community college. I had done quite a bit of tutoring and had come into being a professor from a tutoring background, and they were two very different experiences, and I did not like the community college experience, but it looks good on a resume. And so I just kept doing my astronomy and space events business, which I really enjoyed, and then was kind of just like, okay, I can't do this full time, and what am I going to do? And started writing some courses and everything. And then really, it was my own medical circumstances. I was recovering from having a torn rotator cuff surgery, and I was sitting on my sofa one day and realizing that while my friends were checking on me every couple 3 days or so. I lived in a two-story home, and I couldn't use my left arm. I couldn't drive. And I was like, I could take a really nice header down these steps, and who knows how long I would lay here before anybody realized that they hadn't heard from me in a while. And that was the impetus for developing this app. And then other things happened within my circle of family and friends. And just what started off as an app that was this big became an app that was this big because I kept going, oh my God, we need that too. And oh, we need that too. And wouldn't it be great if it integrated with this? And so it just kept blossoming. And then so I actually designed the database for it for the whole big thing, and then kind of carved it down and said, okay, for the initial release, we're going to do this much. We're going to do these three things, and we're going to market that. And then as time and money goes, we will add these other things on.
So now you kind of had that realization, started to build out the app, or kind of or found the features and kind of or iterated on that. Now, kind of give us an idea as to kind of over what period of time, as this is a side gig or a full-time job or retirement or supplemental, or kind of walk us through kind of what that looked like, or kind of what that structure was as far as kind of over what period of time, and kind of what or what the plan was.
So at the time that the idea for this app came to me, I was living in Oceanside. Oceanside is wonderful, and I thoroughly enjoyed living there. However, it's well known for marines and tacos and surfing, and not necessarily high technology. So I was sitting there thinking, well, like, how am I going to get this developed? And then uh, a decision was made for me to move back to Orange County, which is where I had lived when I moved to California and had lived for many years. And I was driving to the Irvine Costco one day, which is in the Irvine Spectrum. And I'm driving around and I'm seeing all these streets, and I'm like, hey, didn't I used to work like down there over on that street? And wasn't AST like I went up there and turned right, and then I went up a couple, and then that was up there. And it hit me that I was in the middle of this major tech hub, and that everything and everyone that I needed to get this app developed was in my backyard, basically. And so I went home and I got on Meetup, and I started signing up for Meetup groups on app development and cybersecurity and UI, UX design and intellectual property, etc. And one thing led to another, and I've since developed a phenomenal network. And of course, ended up meeting all the people who I needed to get the app developed, and to support the IP in that, and to give me legal advice in other areas of the company, and to help me, learn how to be a successful startup, and to do fundraising, and to run my company. And I have said many times that outside of living in Silicon Valley, I could not do what I have done without living exactly where I do.
No, makes good sense, and sounds like it was a good confluence of circumstances. So, kind of with that all in mind now, so worked on the app, got involved with within the community on building the app and getting guidance on that. Now, as you go down that route, kind of walk through kind of where did or you started out building out the different features and functionality. Walk us through, kind of catch us up. Where are things at today? Because I know that you guys have done everything from, I think you're either in beta or approaching beta, but it sounds like that was over a period of time and figuring things out. So kind of from inception or getting started till today, kind of what was that iteration or evolution like?
So the app was so uh, at the advice of a friend of mine who I've known for many years, and have is in the tech field as well. Um, he told me, he's like, Sandy, you can develop this app. You're perfectly capable of doing this. And so I went down the road of learning the programming languages and the platforms to develop the app myself. And that lasted a few months, and I got to right at a year ago and said to myself, Sandy, this is going to get done the second Tuesday after you die if you keep trying to do this yourself. You just have too many other things that you're responsible for. So I hired a programmer, gave him a brain dump of what all I wanted done, the big picture and then the immediate picture and the steps that we needed to go through. And he did a great job. He got the app developed and it was initially released in October. And then as testing went on, we discovered that the platform that it had been built on did not support the app working as designed. And
Hmm.
it wasn't like a small problem. It was how the notifications got done. And that's kind of the backbone of the app. And this came to light just before Christmas. And I said, look, if we market this as is, this is going to cause me a ton of customer support emails, and frankly, is not going to make me look that good. We're not marketing this. We're pulling this. I'm giving it back to you. I need this redone on a platform that will support the notifications working as designed. And you let me know how much money is going to cost and when that's going to get done. And then that got done around the end of March, and then we did some beta testing. And so really the app only has gone live per se in about the past 2 weeks, where I can honestly say it's stable, it's working, I'm happy with it, the notifications work as designed. But then of course, there's the million and one long list of features and functionalities that I want to add to it, uh, which I am actually in the middle of an email to my developer with, like, as I speak.
No, sounds like it was, it's one where you think you have things figured out, and then you find that, I don't know, design flaw or the drawback or the thing that presents an issue, and now you have to make that decision of do you try and push through and put it out in the marketplace for something that can have that adverse reaction, or do you make the or not fun choice of or pulling it back or holding off on it? So it sounds like the a good decision or played out well for us. So now you guys have just barely launched it, just going into beta. I've been out for a couple weeks, kind of, or within that, or, pretty short time frame. How have things gone? Has it been well received? Is it one where you should have or released it earlier? You should have held off far longer, or kind of walk us through that a bit?
So it's not in beta. It's actually live and
Okay.
released and all that. It's on both of the app stores. It's called Life Backup Plan, and it is on Apple and Google Play stores. Um, as far as the release of it, having spent as many years as I have in and around IT, I'm not a patient person. You spend enough time in IT and you learn that everything has to be done not yesterday, but like 3 or 6 months ago. So from that perspective, I see that I would have liked to have had this app on the market, several years ago. And in fact, it might have saved the lives of some very close people to me had it been on the market several years ago. But it is what it is. Um, and the people with whom I've spoke about it are very excited about it. Um, the the it has the potential to save billions of dollars in healthcare costs, along with just mountains of aggravation and a number of lives. And so now is the time where it's like, okay, market, 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 market.
No, that makes perfect sense, and sounds like it's been a great success so far. Even if it wasn't out quite as soon or as many years ago as maybe the market would have otherwise demanded. So, well, now you have things launched, you're starting to gain traction and get it out there. Now, if you look out kind of the next 6 to 12 months, where do you see things headed, or kind of what is the next step for you?
Well, I have publicly stated what I've been told is a very ambitious goal of having 1 million users by Christmas time. And I firmly believe that uh, to be capable of being done. It's a matter of getting it into the hands of the right organizations. Right now, I'm trying to build up a a small, not small, but a stable user base that I can point to and say, see, all these people are using it. And then I want to go after Medicare and Medicaid and the VA system. Um, I mean, we see headlines all the time of late of wanting to cut Medicaid and cuts to the VA. And I'm sitting here looking at this going, we don't need to cut. Yes, we can cut the dollars, but we can't cut the services. And the way that we do that is to make the system far more efficient. And my app will make that system far more efficient. I was at the Pepperdine University Future of Healthcare Summit 4 weeks ago, and every speaker there, including the Treasurer of the state of California, stressed the urgent need for technology to build systems that will make the healthcare system more efficient, allow a declining healthcare workforce to serve more patients at a lower cost. We have increasing demand and a declining healthcare workforce. A lot of healthcare workers left the field during and post COVID, and I've read statistics that the United States alone is will be short between 37,800 and 124,000 physicians in the next 5 to 6 years. So, and yet we have an aging population, so we have higher demands being placed on a system with fewer resources. The solution to
Hmm.
that problem is to make the whole thing more efficient, which is what my app does.
No, sounds like it will fit in the marketplace well and serve a good need and hopefully find a lot of good traction and success. So, well, now as we've kind of caught up to the present day of the journey and even looking a bit into the future as to where things are headed, great time to transition to the two questions I always like to ask and wrap up each episode with. So jump to those now. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
The worst business decision that I made was the decision to try to develop the app myself. As a CEO and founder, you have so many directions that you're being pulled in. And while I have the technical expertise to develop the app myself, I don't have the time and the bandwidth. I have IP stuff to deal with and, legal stuff to deal with and filing papers with various government agencies and marketing and sales and the website and all this. And I just looked at it and was like, okay, this is something that I can outsource. It's a better use of the time, and this just needs to go. But that cost me a solid 6 to maybe 8 months of development, where the app could have been out on the market 6 to 8 months sooner. And what I've learned from that is figure out what you're good at, what you love, where you want to spend your energy, and find good people to do the rest of it.
Hmm. No, definitely makes perfect sense. And, it's one of those where sometimes you want to get it done yourself, or it's hard to find those that will do as good of a job, or that you can hand things over. And you always tell yourself it'll take me longer to train them or to give them direction than doing it myself. And yet, oftentimes on the back end, you find out that or holds the project back, or otherwise slows the pace. And so, definitely makes sense and sounds like an easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from. Second question now that I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you give them?
Um, Follow your heart. I have, I think, a good set of of instincts and gut reaction. And there's just something inside of me that says, I know that this needs to be done. I know that this will be successful. I know that this is a great idea. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. And everybody I've spoken with is like, wow, that's a fantastic idea. I never thought of doing such a thing. Um, so, figure out what it is that really drives you and motivates you. And like I said a couple minutes ago, figure out what part of that you are good at and what you want to do and what you're excited about doing, and
Mm,
find good people to uh, handle the rest of it. And kind of in conjunction with that, if you are in the United States, look for the Small Business Development Center in your area. I have been a client of the Orange County Inland Empire Small Business Development Center for nearly 3 years. It is free. This is where your federal tax dollars go. Free is my favorite word. These people are phenomenal. They have given me great advice. They have consultants for everything. And like I said earlier, I could not do what I have done without being where I am. And part of that ecosystem is the Orange County Inland Empire Small Business Development Center. And those SBDCs are throughout the country.
no, definitely would echo that. I think, one is anytime you can leverage resources you don't have to pay for, especially on the front end, and as you're getting things going, certainly helps to stretch and make that as effective as possible. And even regardless of that, it's a great resource, and I think definitely one that I'd encourage people to utilize as you build or start and build your business. So. Well, with that, now as we do kind of wrap towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
The website is www.lifebackupplan.com. And my email address is founder@lifebackupplan.com. And my phone number is 858-848-0860. It may not answer all the time, but you're welcome to leave me a voicemail and I will return your call.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you the listeners who are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So, just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe. Leave us a review, helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin. It was a pleasure to be here.